Keep it fresh, keep it local. Celebrate the heart of the community focal. From veggies to honey, there's so much to see. The Farmers Market Podcast is the place to be.
Welcome to the Farmers Market Podcast, where we bring you the freshest finds, expert insights, and farm-to-table inspiration straight from your local market. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of mushrooms. Joining us is special guest Drew Hammet. He's the mastermind behind Mycs Manna, a passionate forager and a mushroom cultivator who's on a mission to educate and excite people about the power of fungi, or fungi, depending on where you're from. From gourmet varieties to medicinal benefits, Drew is going to guide us through the magic of mushrooms and how to find them, cook them, and appreciate their role in our food system. So whether you're a seasoned mycophile or just a mushroom-curious person, get ready for an earthy conversation that's sure to grow appreciation for these gems of nature. So let's dig in. Great to have you, Drew. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Hey, great to be here. Thank you.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about mushrooms. Now, I did a little bit of research. Anytime I kind of talk about something I'm not familiar with, I have to do some research. So I found out mushrooms have been around for almost 13,000 years, with the ancient Egyptians kind of reserving them for royalty. And the Chinese used them for medicinal purposes about 3,000 years ago. So they've been around a long time, and some of the popular mushrooms out there are button, shiitake, portobello. Those are the only ones I know, and porcini. What mushrooms do you grow?
Well, typically, we go for the market that's a little more for high-end restaurants. We have some mushrooms that are just ones you don't see at the store typically, and they're grown by people who know how to cultivate and really keep a genetic library and diverse. Throughout the year, we can have ranges of 5 to 15 different kinds at a time. Depending on what time of year it is, it changes with the season. So
what are some of the names of the mushrooms?
So mainly we do a lot of oysters, and we have just recently stemmed over to more of the medicinal side of lion's mane, and we're doing some more cordyceps. Those bring a lot more income, so we're kind of focusing on medicinal as well as some gourmet.
And what are your? I was going to say, what are some of your favorite mushrooms to grow?
Well, it's great to see oysters because they're a lower price point. They're like the entry level of gourmet mushrooms, and they have about 5 to 7 varieties that we tend to cycle through. We have some hot weather ones like the pink and the yellow oyster. We have some warmer weather blue ones. We have some cold weather blue ones. It just depends on the temperature outside. It really affects the inside temperatures as well.
Now, just before the call, you said you were picking up your dinner. So you said you're trying to eat vegan, and I know there are a lot of people out there that when they're thinking of a non-meat diet, mushrooms seem to crop up. What inspired you to start growing mushrooms?
Well, I want to say before, we talk about the vegan thing, I was in the health industry for a long time as far as selling supplements, as far as being in the gym, personal training, and that was my passion for the longest. And I worked with organic food, and I sold tonic adaptogen mixes before it was even popular, before anybody even knew what it was. And so all these things over the years have collected me in a portfolio of skills that, my entire operation, I may be a plumber one day, I may be an architect the next. It's just, you fabricate everything because there's nothing cookie cutter about mushrooms. So it just has inspired me to utilize all my skills. And then I'm very health conscious. There's things that in my health is not perfect that I'm working on, and that is seemingly what I've been doing has been working with this plant-based diet. You say vegan, but I say plant-based because there is some room for, some play in the field. So it's not, with growth, it's never all at one time. That's not practical. You have to adapt, and you have to make small changes. That's how you overcome those things. But I'm doing it for health reasons, and it's clearing up a lot of inflammation that I have in my body. So I like the way it makes me feel. It's not that I'm going to cancel meat forever, but it's what I'm doing right now, and I promote mushrooms doing it. So that's the beauty of it, because I promote to a lot of vegan audience, and they're all my friends, and I vibe well with them. So I don't mind being a part of that community. Some people think it's kind of a taboo kind of a community, but it's really a health conscious type of community.
No, in preparation for talking to you, I listened to a couple of mushroom-focused podcasts, and I didn't realize mushroom or going on hunts and foraging for mushrooms was a thing. But evidently it's huge, especially on the West Coast and in different parts of the world. I think the gentleman I was listening to today was talking about in Spain, it's like in certain pockets, it's like a mecca of mushroom foragers and growers. I like mushrooms, whether they're raw or cooked. Tell me maybe there's a few things that you've learned over the course of growing mushrooms that maybe we as the general population who are not into growing mushrooms, like I don't think most people do grow mushrooms. What are maybe a few things that we didn't even know about mushrooms?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned about other countries and stuff, so I can kind of draw a little bit of a picture from what I've gathered in agriculture, because I've been in it a while, and when I travel a lot, and I've seen how agriculture is across the world, and we call them third world countries, but they really make us look kind of sad here, because the agriculture there is impeccable, and the stuff here is like, we eat this kind of food, and we're going to call ourselves first world? I don't think so. I mean, not from my experience anyway, but
yeah, no, that's funny you said that. I grew up in Germany, and we were always going to the quote unquote local market. So, and my wife's lived in Italy, so we're very familiar. It's either fresh or you don't eat it. I mean, it's kind of how it is. I think in the U.S. we do a lot of processed foods because it's convenient and easy. But the reality of it is, in Europe and like you said, third world countries, you have to eat fresh because they don't have a way to process the food nor to store it. So tell me what inspired you to start selling at the farmers markets? Because when I stopped by your booth, I mean, it's eye-catching because of the mushrooms and their shape, and they're fascinating. They're just fascinating things. So what inspired you to start selling at the farmers market?
Well, I dealt with a lot of chefs, and I deal with a lot of different people in mushrooms, and I found that the hand-to-hand interaction that you get at the farmers market with people with their different personalities and health issues that they deal with, it's a very relatable type of job. It reminds me of when I did personal training. It's very similar because you get to work with people, you get to see them grow, you get to see them happy, you get to see them have joy about something in their life because they're progressing their health, and it's just that's living the best life for me.
Do you have a favorite story, maybe, whether it be a customer or somebody that's come back to you after you've sold them some mushrooms and have told you things?
As I mentioned, I've worked in agriculture. I've worked in a lot of different types of fields. I've worked at a pharmacy before. I've worked in supplement. I've worked with GNC for years. I've been in this type of industry for a long time. So it just kind of has inspired me, because this lady I used to know, her name was Carolyn, and when I started supplementing her with things for her cancer, she went through about 3 different cancer phases, and every time she beat it with natural homeopathic medicine. And she's one of many people that I can name, and there's a level of satisfaction that you get that money cannot even compare to, and especially the fact that I was not obviously charging this lady a lot of money. I reflect those on my prices. I had another lady the other day buy turkey tail tincture. She walked up very timid, and she asked me a few questions, and I asked her, kind of, I didn't know how to come across with just asking her, do you have some kind of cancer? She's like, I do. And I was like, well, the reason why I asked is because I was going to give you a really good price, because I realized how she's been through probably countless doctors, and she's going through a lot financially. There's no reason for me to make extra. And if I can support her with more products for a better price because she actually needs it for what its purpose is, well, I have plenty of success story right there. And the satisfaction that I get it's not measurable, you know?
Right. No, that is so true. Now, you talked about the medicinal properties in mushrooms. So that's really not new. I mean, I mentioned earlier in the segment about, the Chinese have been using this for more than 3,000 years as in terms of using the medicinal properties inside of mushrooms. I mean, not only are they used, like you said, with chefs and their culinary dishes, but in modern medicine, I mean, I think a lot of, and I don't want to, this is a bad pun, but the roots, some of them come from the properties that are found in mushrooms.
Well, see, that's where they're misled with the education of mushrooms, and that's why we're here talking about this. They just don't realize how much more they are like a mushroom rather than a plant or an animal. So they just don't see that. And the more they study fungus, they'll realize it. That our body is just a natural organism with all different kinds of fungus. Like our mouth has a different fungal makeup in it. It's our stomach. Everything in our body, our feet have fungus. We're made of fungus. I mean, these are our ancestors.
That's funny. Now, how long have you been growing these mushrooms?
Well, I grew up, in a farm town, and I grew up out in the country. So, I've had a lot of influence with cropping and doing all kinds of stuff agriculturally. And so at an early age, I had some of my family really influence me on mushrooms and mushroom cultivation, and because I love food, and I've always loved cooking, and I've always ate mushrooms. So at about 15 years old, I started really eating mushrooms. I've experienced just tons of different high-end foods, and I always feel like the best food I've ever tasted is mushrooms because it has more terpene profiles to flavor food than really anything on the planet.
And how do you, so you've been growing these for quite some time. I mean, you've been growing, maybe not here in the upstate of South Carolina, but you've been growing them for some time. Now, how do you grow them? Because I know there are several different farmers that do, they do the inoculation of the logs out in the woods. I know some that do the spore packages in humidified and temperature-controlled environments. How are you growing the mushrooms?
Just kind of depends on your level of patience because realistically, I try to cover every bit of that. And it can consume you. It's a lot of time invested. It's a lot of work, late nights, and so I cover a lot of ground. I mean, we have, my partner, you mentioned foraging stuff earlier. I want to cover that a little bit. He takes tours and all that. We can promote him through this. He's his own LLC, but we work together at my farm, and we help build each other's business. And he's high-level experience with this type of thing, and it's very easy to work with somebody like that. Like I say, he does forage events. He and I both do mushroom dinners. I've done some log cultivation workshop. We've done a few other events similar to that. I mean, there's hikes, there's forays, there's email list that you can sign up to find out where everybody's going to be. We have.
What's the name of his business? What's the name of his?
He's called IC Fungi. he used to work with Mushroom Mountain, and I was good friends with him in college, and I ran into him again at Mushroom Mountain, and that day I said in my mind, that guy's coming with me.
Where's Mushroom Mountain? I've heard that before. Where is that?
That's it's like Pickens area. There's it's like 6 Mile Pickens. I can't remember exactly. I've only been there a couple times, but
okay.
It's out there.
We actually it's funny you mentioned foraging and mushroom dinners. That's exactly what I heard on the podcast. That's pretty popular to do a mushroom dinner, because a lot of people, when they think of mushrooms, they just think, oh, it's either you're throwing them in a salad raw, or they just happen to be on your pizza, or maybe you've used them in some kind of cream sauce. But there's so much more you can do with mushrooms. Now, you mentioned the foraging. We were in Nashville and we went on a forage trip, and that was talk about enlightening. I did not realize there were so many edible things just right there growing that you can eat. I mean, you got to be a little bit careful, but you mentioned growing mushrooms different ways. What's the hardest mushroom for you to grow?
So with your grow room, there's kind of a balance. I mean, you want to be growing optimally as many species as you can. So some grow rooms have to be drier than others, some have to be wetter than others, because they don't all interact very well. There's a balance to it. It's a huge balancing act with genetics. It's not very straightforward. It's a lot of cloning specimen after specimen, getting it to multiple levels of establishment.
Do you have a mushroom that is the hardest to grow? And I'll give you an example personally, because my wife, she always wants slicing tomatoes, and she wants me to grow them. And I have tried several seasons, and I've been unsuccessful. I've also had a bad time with growing carrots. So there are certain vegetables that I'll just, for whatever reason, I just don't have the right thing at the right time, and they're very hard to grow. Is there a particular mushroom variety where you go, this guy's tricky? It's not that I can't grow them, but it takes a little bit more TLC and patience.
Well, chestnuts are pretty finicky. They're really not worth it, in my opinion, to grow them. Piopinos are far superior, and they're really similar category. And so they have a very long incubation period. And if you don't have them clean, they're taking up space in there. And, if you don't have them on time, they get real slimy. They're really messy. They're not very practical. So I guess difficulty-wise, it makes it very difficult on you laborers-wise. But as far as figuring it out, not really. But I'll tell you this, if you don't pull piopinos fast enough, there's a very short window and they will get slimy on you quick and ugly. So that makes it difficult.
I don't think I've met one person who hasn't bought mushrooms and for whatever reason forgot to unwrap them, or they got stuck in the back of the refrigerator, and next thing you know, you're actually pulling out what you just said, a slimy mess. So if that's the hardest to grow, well, what's one of the easiest mushrooms to grow?
We have some that we've worked on, as far as establishing a very strong culture for it. And we have a pink oyster and we have a blue oyster that is so fast. I mean, it just requires very little time to colonize these blocks. Like, I've inoculated blocks and I can walk in less than 24 hours later. There's over a quarter size worth of growth. Like, if you put a coin up to it, it's that big in less than 24 hours.
Mushrooms grow that fast?
The mycelium can grow that fast on certain ones. I mean, certain things can be very fast depending on how strong your genetics are and what type they are.
Holy smoke. I did not realize they could grow that fast. I mean, I've grown some microgreens that usually, they can take 3 to 5 days to basically be ready. But I didn't realize that mushrooms could grow in 24 hours. Now, do you have, I don't know, I'm sure you've got all kinds of funny stories about growing mushrooms, but do you have one that comes kind of top of mind?
Well, I mean, it is pretty funny how much little people know about mushrooms. So, I named my company Mycs Manna because Manna, the word, it means what is it? So anytime somebody comes up to my stand, half the people don't even know it's food or mushrooms or anything edible. They think they're arrangements that are for decoration, or they can't figure it out. So, I mean, they walk up and they're like, what is it? I was like, well, you got it. That's what it is. It's manna.
Yeah, well, if it's not fried and you're in the South, then that's probably why people don't recognize it. Now, wait, fried mushrooms, though, I've had fried mushrooms. That is not bad to have some of that. I mean, I've had those. I forgot what type of mushrooms they were. But so let me ask you this. You mentioned people coming up not knowing. So what advice would you give to some newcomers to the market who literally will walk by? I mean, there's several mushroom, I guess, growers and vendors at the market that we went to, the Frosty Farmer Market. But what advice would you give to somebody that's never probably bought a mushroom, seen a mushroom like the ones you have, the lion's mane, you mentioned the pink, I forgot what it was, the pink something.
Pink oysters.
Yes, the pink oysters. They're very, I mean, they're just alluring. They're mysterious. I mean, what advice would you give to somebody that's coming for the first time and sees your mushrooms and is like, I'm a little intimidated? Because I think you would be if you didn't know anything about mushrooms.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of intimidation from the mushrooms, and it just really takes somebody who's genuinely interested, and they can sign up on these email lists that we have, and we'll show them events that we have scheduled. I mean, Brandon does classes that are so advanced that he's teaching people how to start their own farm, and they're going to come and do internship with us. I mean, we have people wanting to come. There's tons of people wanting to come work for free. There's schools wanting to come to bring kids and do education out there to work free. I mean, it's a wide open field right now. I mean, I just was told the other day this huge chicken farm was shut down and they replaced it with a mushroom farm. And they're apparently doing that all over the place because it's a way better industry. It's way more, I think, better for the environment. I don't know if that's what they were thinking, but maybe that's what they were thinking.
Oh, maybe. Now, do you guys have any specials going on right now with Mycs Manna?
I have my new tinctures with my nice, beautiful labels that I spent a lot of time on because, let's face it, I'm a farmer and I'm not tech savvy. So I take a lot of pride in these labels that I was helped so graciously through.
So how can people find out about the specials on the tinctures, the classes that you guys have, the mushroom evenings, I think you said the mushroom dinners? How can people find out about you, Mycs Manna, and your mushrooms?
I'm in the process of setting up my website. I have some on my products on my website right now. Another one is forage.com, Mycs Mushroom Manna. And you can get all my products from there. I have my drink blends in both sizes. And I have 3 different tinctures in 2 different sizes. I have lion's mane tincture. I have turkey tail and reishi. We are working on cordyceps tincture. It is U.S. organic grown cordyceps right here at my farm. And it's like the highest levels, of cordyceps that you can get because it's grown here. A lot of stuff that's imported there doesn't have the compounds that you're looking for. So we take pride in that one, and it's going to be one of our best-selling tinctures.
Now, what's the fastest way people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your mushrooms and what you got going on? How can they get in touch with you?
I have my Instagram. You can send me a message at the moment. You can always catch me at the farmer's market, the Frosty one. I'll be at the Simpsonville one this year. I'm supposed to be at the downtown one also this year. Brandon will be at Spartanburg and Greer. So we are, as far as the networking thing, Brandon is better at that. And I know I'm not really answering your question, how can I educate these people, but we do have these events that you can check out. My friend's store at the Mushroom Spot, a lot of his mushrooms in that store I put in there. My products are in there as well. There's a lot to be learned from that store because you have a little facility you can walk around. His grow op, we're getting his tuned and we're all helping each other in this community.
What's his name again?
It's called the Mushroom Spot. It's on Pleasantburg, and it's across from Bob Jones University in the Pecknell Shopping Center.
Yep, know exactly where it's at.
His name is Ward. He is one of my dearest friends and also business associate. And we, like I said, I plan to sell him some grain spawn this week, more drink blends. We do this weekly, and all my products are up there. But like I say, Brandon does classes out of there. Ward does some things up there. Like I did log workshop with him. We have a kombucha course we're about to do as far as doing SCOBY and stuff like that. It's all fungus.
That's funny. My wife did. I don't know if she told you. She did make some homemade kombucha, and she did go purchase the SCOBY, and I'm very familiar with that side of the world too. So that's, yeah. It's funny how they all intertwine at some point, and of course, people can find you on the Farmers Market podcast. You can find you on our website. We'll have links to all of the contact points to get in touch with you about mushrooms. And I know I'm probably going to have more questions about mushrooms in the future. And I know you're going to be the right guy that we get to talk to. So, Drew, I do want to thank you so much for being on the Farmers Market podcast and kind of educating me and educating our audience about the fun and interesting world of mushrooms.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to having some more podcasts about mushrooms for sure.
And that's a wrap, folks. We made it together through this episode of the Farmers Market Podcast in good spirits, a little humor, and lots of information. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Farmers Market Podcast. If you've enjoyed our segments, whether it was the market highlight of the week, if you had an itching to shop local, the feature farm spotlight that made you dream of country living, or our garden tips that might find you actually, growing carrots or making an Instagram-worthy post, you're officially part of the freshest crew around. You can catch every episode at thefarmersmarketpodcast.com. It's like visiting a farmer's market without the early wake-up call or the accidental tumble of tomatoes. We're also hanging out on Facebook, where you can find us at facebook.com, Farmers Market Podcast. Follow us, share a comment, or drop a photo of your latest market haul. Bonus points for oddly shaped vegetables, no less. And hey, if you've got a farm, a market, or a great story to share, we'd love to have you on as a guest. Just visit our website, click Be a Guest, and let us know why you'd make the perfect addition to the podcast. And who knows, your story could inspire the next wave of local farmers and food lovers everywhere. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for listening. And remember, here on the Farmers Market Podcast, we keep it fresh, we keep it local. See you next time.
Strolling through the market, it's a beautiful day. Fresh picked produce just a step away. Meat and dairy from the farm to your plate. Homemade crafts that are truly great. Keep it fresh, keep it local. Celebrate the heart of the community focal. From veggies to honey, there's so much to see. The Farmers Market Podcast is the place to be. Learn about the farmers and the seeds they sow. The beekeeper's secrets and how gardens grow. Homesteading wisdom, tips galore. Every week, there's always more. Keep it fresh, keep it local. Celebrate the heart of the community focal. From veggies to honey, there's so much to see. The Farmers Market Podcast is the place to be. The cluck of the chickens, the buzz of the bees, fresh air and sunshine, it's all you need. Connecting with the farmers, the crafters too. Every episode there's something new. Keep it fresh, keep it local. Celebrate the heart of the community focal. From veggies to honey, there's so much to see. The Farmers Market Podcast is the place to be. So grab your basket and come along. Tune in each week for the freshest song. The Farmers Market Podcast, it's where